Hey, it's a nice rainy night, so if you hear a lot of rain noise, that's what's going on. Last week we had a big snowstorm in Texas, which is crazy for us. Um, and then now we're getting hit with like a hurricane level storm suddenly tonight. But it's the first night I've been able to get out here in about a week, which is less than what I like. So we're gonna jump in and do this. Tonight I'm gonna work on the lower stretchers. So I need 3 of them, 1 for the back and 2 for the sides. And basically what I'm gonna do for that is I've got some straightish grain stock here, and I'm gonna rip a 1x1 strip, and then I'm gonna cut octagonal shapes onto it, and then I'll use a Veritas tenon cutter to do a cylindrical tenon, and we'll trim it to the length that we need, and drill our holes just by eye, and I'll show you how I do that, and that's all we're gonna be doing tonight. All right, now that I've got my octagonal stock ready, I can kind of start fitting where these need to go. And the way I like to do that is I've got stretcher locations marked onto my template. So all I'm going to do is lay this guy up against the side, and here's where my side stretcher goes. So I'm just going to mark where that is on the front, and go back with my combination square and get a feel for where that measurement is. From the top stretcher, and I'll use that on all 4 sides instead of relying on my template. So that's where I'll go. Right there. I'll mark it on the other 2 sides. Okay, that's my side stretcher location. So now I'll take another square and mark it out toward the middle where the hole will actually get drilled. All right, for the front legs, this is simple to figure out where we want to mark. These legs are, just shy of 1.5 inches thick. So since these are at a 90-degree angle, roughly, I guess actually it's a 5-degree taper, but I can basically mark at 3/4 of an inch. And have a safe drilling location. Now for the back legs, because it's twisted, the bulk is actually offset toward this direction on the outside of the chair. So instead of 3/4 of an inch, I'm going to bump that down to 1/2 of an inch to give it some more meat to drill into. I'll do that on both sides. And now I'm going to do the same thing for the back stretcher, so this one's a little bit lower down. Basically, I think for these guys, I'm actually just going to use the mark. And next I'm going to take a little awl and just poke a hole to give my bit a starting point. And I'll do that on all of these mortises. All right, next up to drill the holes and to make the tenons. I'm going to start, I've got a Veritas tenon cutter. This is a 3/4 inch one. So these inch diameter octagons will get a tenon put on the end of it. And we'll cut these to the length before I put that on. And to get the mortises, I'm going to use a Forstner bit because it has a clean entry hole. And I can kind of redirect it even if it makes a little bit of a different shape hole after if you twist it, it'll make it a little bit elliptical. That's okay. And then to test the depth, I've got a marking gauge that's set to 3/4 inch because of that 1.5 inch deep or thick leg. I don't want to go too much deeper than that or I'll risk weakening it a little bit. And I'm not going to use any jigs to get the holes to go straight. I'm just going to wing it by taking my drill and basically doing my best to line it up with the mortise that it'll be pointing toward. And the legs or the stretchers should be flexible enough that it works well. I've never had a problem with this. So basically I'm just going to take the drill and hold it with my hand here. Use that awl hole to start my Forstner bit and keep the butt of the drill oriented toward that other hole here. Okay, so on that first pass I went the full depth of the top of the Forstner bit, and I'm just going to check my depth, and obviously this is deeper than the Forstner bit, so it's not quite deep enough yet. Okay. All right, and I'm at depth, and I'm not too concerned about going much past it, but a little bit past it is okay. All right, so that's one done. Then I'll just flip the chair around. Okay, so you can see my awl hole right here that will work with the spur of the Forstner bit to get started. So get my camera back in focus. There we go. So basically we'll just lock that in place and it's a secure place. And then you kind of have to start the hole perpendicular to the board. And then after you get the hole started, you can start cocking it over to get it to go in the right place. Otherwise, this will just continue to drift toward the right through the piece and not get the hole clean or where you want it. I'll go in this way, and then after I get it piloted, I'll be canting it over this way. I'll show you, here's the hole I just drilled. So it's a little bit elliptical, but you can really barely tell, and that's gonna work just fine once we get the tenon ready to go in there. And here's my other one that I kind of, you can see I mucked it up a little bit because I tilted the bit over a little bit too early, and it just gouged that side out because it tried to drift. But this one turned out clean, and hopefully the other ones do too. I just need to check my depth. Just fairly shy, so one more to go. And still just need a tiny touch. Okay, satisfactory to me. And then now all I need to do is do the back stretcher ones, and they're the same as before. All right, let me show you these mortises that I drilled. Here's one of the ones in the back of the back legs for the back stretcher, and then the side stretcher holes. So there we go. So these should be oriented in the correct direction so that we get a nice parallel hole and don't have any issues with mating. Same thing on the back legs. These holes, it's hard to tell, but they are canted out toward the direction of the other leg, so they should mate easily. So next up, I'm going to vacuum up this mess, and then we'll make the tenons. Okay, to get the widths between these guys and the depths of the mortises, basically I'm just going to take this shortest length, it's about 13 inches, and add about 1.5 inches to that. So that should be 14.5, and write that down so I don't forget it. 14.5. Let me check the other side. Should be the same. So I'm looking for about 13. Okay, just a little shy of 13. And then this back leg is about 12. So that one will be 13 and a half. And we need 2 side stretchers at that 14 and a half and 1 at 13 and a half. So I'm basically just going to take my octagons and cut them down to those lengths. So I'm going to 14 and a half. There's 1. 2. Now before we can use these octagons, we need to put a tenon on the end of these. Now if you haven't seen these are basically like big pencil sharpeners. This particular one, well these are by Veritas, but this particular one has a tapered head, so the transition should be a little bit gentler. It won't be a forced, rabbit basically. It should have a 45-degree taper at the top. But I'll basically chuck these guys up in my end vise and try to make a short tenon on here. I'll try to make it not too long so it mostly stays in as an octagon, but the end will have a little bit of a cylinder with transition on it. You go to check out Lost Art Press's version of doing these. They have a lot of instruction on how to make tenons by clamping something up in a vise and running one of these tenon cutters on them. But basically, I just eyeball it and I look down the length of the stick and try to match up the angle with my drill. And I use my hips to provide the force and keep it steady and try not to let it rock. So I start slow and then get it up to full speed and then plunge. And I don't need to go as far as this can go, so I'm just going to try to take it easy. That's about 3/4 of an inch. There we go. So that was not my straightest tenon ever, but it is the right size and it should work okay. I'll try to get the next one straighter. There you go. And you can see that one looks pretty nice and kind of has that pencil effect where it's tapered down. Okay, so that's 6 tenons cut, and we're ready to do a dry assembly and see how they fit. So here are my completed sticks with their tenons on the ends and nice, mostly octagon shaped profiles. This one I think is for the back, and these 2 are for the sides. So I'll start with the sides, and basically I'm just going to loosen up my ratchet strap a tiny bit, just to introduce some flex here. And try to slip these in and make sure that they can fit all the way in. It's still quite tight, so I'm going to use a clamp to help seat them fully. And I think that this one must be too long because it won't fully seat. So I'm going to knock it apart. And just trim off the end of the tenon. And because I don't need these to be just the perfect length, I'm going to take off a whole like 1/4 of an inch, 1/2 inch. And we'll see if that's a better fit. Okay, now it looks like it's going together fine. So we'll take a look at the other side. I think I'll go ahead and take the risk of trimming this one down, assuming I'm going to have the same problem. So you can see these are quite loose. So I'll shove one side in. Now, can I fully seat them? Looks like I can. So those 2 are good, and they're going to be a pickle to get apart because those tenons are quite snug and plenty strong. go ahead and press on some back legs and make sure that these can fit too. Just gonna take the rabbit strap all the way off, because the next step after this is to do an actual glue up. Let's take a quick review. So here's my tenons in their placements. So you can see there's that transition point, which isn't the prettiest ever, but I don't mind it. But what I'm looking for is to make sure that these are seated and not causing a gap toward the top for the actual glue up. There's the side, so it looks nice and parallel to the top. And so for freehanding, it looks pretty good. So next up, I think we'll break it all apart and go ahead and do our glue up.